Mary, I know you watch every one of these, but today, this one is for you. My name is Richard Lawson. Most folks call me Rick. I'm 80 years old. I've been married to Mary for 58 years. We raised Tom and Lisa in Cedar Falls, Iowa. I worked 35 years at the same manufacturing plant. I've tried to live steady, predictable, dependable. But there's something I never told anyone, and I've carried it for 60 years. Not Mary, not Buck, no one. And that's not easy for me to admit at 80 years old. I've lived a life that looks open. Steady marriage, long career, faith, routine, morning walks with the same friend I enlisted with. From the outside, there aren't many hidden chapters, but this one stayed sealed. Before I begin, if stories like this matter to you, if you believe some truths are worth telling even after 60 years of silence, would you take a moment to like and subscribe? It helps me keep speaking about the things many of us carry quietly. I read the comments myself, and I'm grateful for every word. Buck and I enlisted at 18 and a half. 18 and a half. When I say that now, it almost sounds unreal. 18 and a half is still asking your parents where the extra blankets are kept. It's still pretending you understand the world because you've driven a few hours outside your hometown. It's still being proud of a jawline that hasn't even finished growing in. When I look at young men that age now, I see how unfinished they are. Hopeful, loud, certain about things they haven't tested yet. That was us. We stood taller than we felt. We squared our shoulders, because that's what you do when the bus door closes behind you and there's no turning around. We told ourselves we were ready because saying anything else would have felt like weakness. But inside, we were still boys trying to measure up to an idea of manhood we didn't fully understand. And sometimes, the hardest secrets a man keeps aren't about what happened. They're about who he really was when it did. I had proposed to Mary just before I was shipped out. I remember that evening clearly, the way the porch light hit her face, the way my voice tried not to shake. I wasn't offering her security. I was offering her uncertainty wrapped in a promise. She didn't hesitate. She said yes, like she had already decided long before I asked. We weren't married yet. We were just two young people holding on to a future neither of us could see clearly. There was no house yet, no wedding album, no shared last name written on a mailbox. Just a promise made under a porch light and the belief that someday we would stand at the front of a church and mean every word. Her letters kept me grounded, real paper, real ink. I can still remember the way the envelopes felt in my hands before I even opened them. Sometimes she'd write about Cedar Falls, about the way the wind came off the fields in late fall, how it rattled the windows at her parents' house. Sometimes she'd tell me she went shopping with her mother, looking at dishes or curtains, just to feel like she was preparing for us. Preparing for a life that hadn't started yet, but already felt real to her. Sometimes she'd write about missing me so much it hurt. And I wrote back, "I'm fine. Don't worry. I'll be home before you know it." Those letters were steady, confident, reassuring. They sounded like a man who had everything under control, even when he didn't. They weren't lies, but they weren't the whole truth. There was one night. I won't describe it. I don't need to. It was one of those nights where the air feels heavy and the future feels thin. The kind of night where an 18, 19-year-old boy realizes he does not control the next hour. Buck was close by. We didn't talk much. We just looked at each other once. That was enough. And for the first time, the thought came clear and simple. What if I don't make it back to marry her? Not dramatic, just honest. I had been thinking about surviving, about doing my part, about staying steady. But that night, I thought about a wedding that might never happen. Later, when things quieted down, I couldn't sleep. Most of the others tried. I didn't. I reached into my pack and pulled out paper, and I wrote a letter to Mary that I never mailed. It wasn't like the others. It didn't say, "I'm fine." It didn't say, "Don't worry." It said what I was too proud to admit. I told her I was afraid, not constantly, but more than a young man can handle. The truth is, I didn't want to be there. I never said that out loud back then. You don't. You convince yourself that wanting to be somewhere else means weakness. But there were nights I would have given anything to be back in Cedar Falls, sitting at my parents' kitchen table, listening to my mother hum while she washed dishes. I thought about my father's quiet way of speaking, my brother and sister, my favorite uncle who used to take me fishing and tell me stories about when he was young. I wondered if I would see any of them again. We had already lost 3 near friends, young men who had stood beside me just days before, laughing, making plans for when we got home. You don't forget that. You don't forget how quickly a voice disappears from the conversation. There were moments I stood there thinking, maybe I'm next. And yes, there were times my hand shook. Times I felt tears I didn't want anyone to see. Just a quiet breaking inside a young man trying to look unbreakable. In that letter, I admitted that sometimes, in the stillness, I felt smaller than the uniform I was wearing. I wondered if Mary would still see me the same way if she knew I wasn't fearless. I told her that if I didn't make it home, it wouldn't be because I stopped loving her. It would be because life had moved in a direction I couldn't control. And I told her something else. I told her that the thought of standing beside her one day, saying our vows, was the thing that steadied me most. That image, her walking toward me, that small church, the promise, it was stronger than the fear. When I finished writing it, my hands were shaking, not from noise, from honesty. There's something about putting your fear on paper. It makes it real. It takes it out of your chest and lays it in front of you. And once it's there, you can't pretend you never felt it. The next morning, I read it again, and I realized something. If I mailed that letter, she would read it while waiting for me. She would sit in Cedar Falls, engaged to a man who might not come home, carrying words that sounded final. Every knock on the door would feel heavier. Every phone call would feel sharper. I couldn't do that to her, so I folded it. And I wrote another letter instead. The safe one, the strong one. The version of me she expected. I told myself I would destroy the first letter. I didn't. I kept it. When I came home in 1969, at 22, Mary and I got married later that year, just like we promised. I wore a black suit. She wore a beautiful white dress. We stood in front of family and friends and said vows that felt bigger than both of us. She never knew there had been nights I wasn't sure I would make it back to stand across from her in that white dress. I put that letter in a small box with my discharge papers and a photograph of Buck and me. And life moved forward. I worked at the plant. I woke up early. I gave my best hours to a factory floor. We raised Tom and Lisa. We packed school lunches. We sat through parent-teacher conferences. We argued about small things, but we always made up before bed. we built something steady. There were moments over the years when Mary would look at me and say, "You were always so strong over there." And I would nod, because I didn't know how to explain that strength and fear can live in the same body. In the 1960s, young men didn't talk about fear. We carried it quietly. We believed protecting the women we loved meant filtering our truth. At least I did. But here's what I've learned at 80. Strength is not pretending you were never afraid. Strength is showing up even when you are. For 60 years, that letter has stayed folded. Mary, it's here beside me right now. You've never seen it. Buck never knew what I wrote. No one did, until tonight. The paper is yellow now. The fold lines are worn deep. I can see where my younger hands pressed hard with the pen. I haven't read this out loud in 60 years. I'm going to read part of it. And Mary, I am sorry. This is the only thing I kept from you. I hope you can forgive me. Now here is what the letter says. Mary, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home to marry you like I promised. I need you to know something. I was not fearless. There were moments when I felt unsure and smaller than I wanted to be. But even in those moments, my love for you felt larger than my fear. The thought of standing beside you one day, saying our vows, is what kept me steady tonight. If that day never comes, please remember me not as a hero, but as a young man who loved you deeply and tried his best. That's where I'll stop. There's more, but that's enough. I never mailed it because I didn't want you to live with those words while I was still breathing. I thought I was protecting you. Maybe I was, but I was also hiding a piece of myself. And over a lifetime, small pieces add up. I've come to understand something that might matter to someone watching this. When you hide your fear, you think you're protecting love. But sometimes you're keeping love from deepening. Love built only on strength feels safe. Love built on truth feels close. Mary, you married a whole man. You deserve to know the whole man. Buck and I still walk together most mornings. We don't talk about that night. We don't need to. But I've learned that the strongest men I've known weren't the ones who never felt fear. They were the ones who faced it and kept moving. At 18 and a half, we thought bravery meant silence. At 80, I know bravery can mean honesty. Mary, you have been my #1 supporter. You watch every video. You encourage me when I doubt myself. You sit across from me at breakfast like you have for decades. This is the only thing I kept from you. Not because I didn't trust you, because I was young, and I thought love meant shielding you from everything heavy. If you can forgive that young man, I'd be grateful. And to anyone listening, especially the younger ones, don't wait decades to let someone see your whole heart. You don't have to dramatize your fear. You don't have to make others carry your burdens recklessly. But don't build a life where the people closest to you only know the polished version. Time moves quietly. One day you wake up and you're 80, and you realize that truth told gently strengthens love more than silence ever did. Tomorrow morning, Buck will pull into my driveway at 5:30 a.m. The sun will rise over Cedar Falls. Mary will be in the kitchen like she always is. Life will look the same. But something inside me will be lighter. If this meant something to you, if it stirred a truth you've been holding back, I'd appreciate you liking and subscribing so I can continue sharing what many seniors have learned slowly over time. And Mary, thank you for waiting for me, even on nights you didn't know were heavy. I love you. I always did. even on the night I wasn't sure I'd ever make it home to marry you.